What's up, folks? Welcome back to the show. Next on, we have Miss LeAnne Pierce. Miss LeAnne is a businesswoman, former Carolina Beach mayor, and now running for New Hanover County Commissioners. We really appreciate her spending time to explain some things to us, her perspective on this line of communication between department heads and the commission, how we can improve that line of communication to fit everybody's needs to better serve our public. Communication was definitely the key takeaway in this whole conversation. She was great. It was great to talk to her. Our local IAFF 4576 is endorsing her. We're very proud of that. Proud of the relationship that we're building with her and the rest of the county commission. If you haven't switched over your Amazon to Amazon Smile, please do so. The link in the directions is in the bottom in the show description. Thank you all so much for your support. We love you. God bless.
I just got to make sure my hair wasn't sticking out. We can't have that.
Oh, no, you're
So you're
good.
going to edit this, right?
Yeah.
One day you're going to go, hey, we got all that edited stuff that she...
Trust me, once I get the final product, we don't have enough bandwidth or enough space to save all the trash, so
Oh yeah, it's
I
gone.
hear
it
ya.
goes away.
Yeah.
I hear ya. We'll have to get somebody to snap a picture. Is anybody else in this building?
I don't know if there is right now.
No, but we'll definitely get a.
Yeah, we'll
But,
get a picture before we leave.
So we're just going to talk, and you're going to cut what you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what I was saying is when I first moved to Carolina Beach, my husband joined the fire department. And 30 years ago, you guys won't know this, but 30 years ago, it was all volunteer, 100%. Even the chief was a volunteer. Actually, the chief at that time, and I don't know if you've heard of him, was Chief Weeks. He was the fire chief. He was the marina. He controlled the marina and everything. So he was a one-man show. Matter of fact, the room in the fire department is now named after him. But, that was my first experience with the fire department, and having met those friends. That community was so close-knit. And I just remembered when I was chatting with you that I was on the fire bells. I was a treasurer for the fire bells, and we ran water out and food at the fires. And so, that's been a long time ago. And some of those people that I met when I first moved to Carolina Beach are still my very best friends. So I understand you have a really close community.
Mm-hmm. What's a fire bell? Did you know about this?
It seems like I've heard of it. I've heard some of the, for lack of better terminology, I've heard some of the old timers talk about the fire bell. I would assume it's like the women's auxiliary.
It is like the women's auxiliary, and
yeah.
I guess I would be an old timer too.
Oh,
so.
no,
We called them
no.
fire bells back then. We, all the ladies were fire bells, and we had our little red jackets. I said, I still have that somewhere. I should have wore that here. That'd be cool, But so we did that, and back then they had pagers, and that's how they got their calls. I don't know how you get them now, if it's the same way, but they would get a page, and that would come over the radio. He ended up being a captain on the fire department, so he had a radio. So we knew whenever there was a call that page went off, and so we didn't have cell phones then either, by the way.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how much technology's changed in 30 years.
The pagers are still very much around.
Yeah.
We don't use them here. We've progressed past that for the county, but I live in Duplin County, in our little area facing where I live, all the volunteers still use pagers. That's not a forgotten technology.
Well, I know exactly where Faison is, by the way.
Okay,
So, I grew up in Penderley, so
Gotcha.
if you know where that is.
I know exactly where that's at. My son played a football game at Penderley High School I guess it was early last month.
That's where I went to high school.
Looky there.
Small world, huh?
Yeah, I'm glad they finally got their football field together.
I know, right?
Yeah, it's a good place for sure. And to see, you served in Carolina Beach as well, didn't you? What did you do there?
So I originally started out on the Board of Adjustments at Carolina Beach, and then I was on the Planning and Zoning Commission, and I decided I was going to run for town council. So I won that election, and I was on town council. I ran a second time, so that took me into my second term, 6 years as a council person. Then I ran for mayor, and I was elected mayor in 2019 and hit the ground running in 2020 as the pandemic began,
Right.
which didn't see that coming. And so I spent 8 years total, and I was last 2 years as mayor, first woman mayor of Carolina Beach. And I did not rerun again after that term was over because I decided to run for county. So 8 years total, and it was. I love the people at Carolina Beach. They're wonderful. And I still own a business there. I'm in the hotel business, And I still have that, and I just decided it was time for a little turnover, and they needed some new faces, and so did our county commission.
Wow, what a great sense of just self-recognition there that they needed new faces down there. That's something you don't hear very many people say ever.
Yeah, I like a need-based decision. You know what I mean? It feels good. The fire department is kind of full of that sort of thing.
Well, and that's how it is anywhere. I think it's time for a little turnover. And they asked about term limits. I said, no, there's no term limits. But I felt like that it was time for some new blood there, and new blood in the county, and some representation in the county of someone that's been a mayor in our beach towns.
Yeah, our good friend then, if you were in 2020, see, Chief Griffin's been down there.
So Alan is a very good friend, and he's a wonderful fire chief, and he's done great things down there, and he's awesome.
Yeah, he's a good friend of ours. He's been on the show. He's been on the show once, but we always we take this studio and take it to the First Due Conference, which he hosts there in Carolina Beach.
That's right.
So we take this entire studio, and we set up in the lobby, and we have conversations with from students to all the instructor cadre that's there. We talk to all of them. It's first class.
So I hope Alan and Buddy, too. I know you probably know Buddy, too. I hope all you fellows are listening. So I'm downtown Wilmington, and say hey to everybody in Carolina Beach. But Alan came on, I believe, the first year I was on council. So the whole 8 years I was there, he was our chief, or still is.
Mm-hmm. What are some common things that you hear from the fire service side as far as like needs? You can take this back to town council or just as mayor or whatever. What are some common things, like repeated things over the years, or you know what I'm saying? Just, you're picking up what I'm putting down. What are some common needs that they always seem to need to be met?
Yeah, and so it's always equipment. It's always equipment. It seems like by the time we get the fire trucks are just so expensive, and the equipment's so expensive. By the time we get it paid off, it's time for a new one.
You're not wrong.
So I know, and we talked about a capital plan and a long range build out to know what was coming up, and that was important. And employees, and how to retain firefighters, and how to get them to want to be in Carolina Beach instead of maybe one of the other beach towns or the city of Wilmington or the county. There's a lot of competition out there for good employees.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah,
very true.
That retention thing is something we talk about a lot. What's it look like from your side? You know what I mean? There's we see the value in keeping somebody a long time. They get where they know the department, they know how things work, and their value to the department keeps going up. What's it look like from your side of that?
So I agree. I mean, you need that experience. You can't have a whole department full of new people.
Yeah.
That are inexperienced. But on the same hand, you don't want your age to be the older group either. So you need that young, new, fresh person in there as well. So it's very difficult because the competition is so steep, and a lot of times, and I'm sure we may get into this, but can someone who is working as a fireman afford to live on the beach towns? It's very expensive. Sure. So where do they live? In relation, they might say, well, it's easier for me to live in Castle Hayne or Leland or somewhere else,
Duplin
and
County.
drive to Duplin County.
Yeah.
Exactly. My sister still lives out there, by the way. And drive to work every day. So I get it. And so that's a big part of the issue. And you're talking, if you live in Duplin County, an hour, if you're driving all the way to the coast.
Mm-hmm.
You're exactly right. That retention, and it's we see two sides of it when it comes to retention. We see the 2 and 3 year folks leaving, and their reason for leaving 99.9% of the time is for pay. Because, when you're young, 18, 19, 20 years old, all you're chasing is dollar bills. So you don't understand benefits. You don't understand all these added privileges of staying somewhere for a length of time. But we see that crowd, and now we're starting to see, and this is fire service as an industry nationwide. We're starting to see a lot of our 15 and 20 year guys leaving. And that's not necessarily based off of pay, but it's just for other reasons. There's a host of reasons that the folks are leaving. Just I'm not knocking here, but the political BS that comes along with once you get up in there, there's the burnout after 15 or 20 years, and a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of new things, new scares in our job, not just the fire side of things, but cancer is a big thing with us now. So there's a lot of a lot of other reasons that they're leaving, and then leadership, a lack of leadership, a lack of county government, a lack of government officials, whether it be city, municipality you're working for, county, a kind of a lack of support. That seems to be a lot of the reason that the 15 and 20-year guys are leaving, which is detrimental to a department when it comes to trying to get these younger folks to stay on. So it's wild. I'm interested to hear some of your thoughts on how maybe we can combat these issues. So we'll start with the 2 and 3, and how important like competitive pay is. That's a big thing here in New Hanover. We just had a great pay raise. That's wonderful, but what's next after that? Are we silent for 5 years, 10 years, as we were before, or what's next?
So that's interesting. I call that the missing middle. That everybody looks at the low income, and we should, and then there's people who can afford what they're doing, but then the missing middle would be our school teachers and our firefighters and our police officers and a lot of our people who work in our service industry. I call them the missing middle. So how do they make it where? How do we make it where they can afford to live in New Hanover County? Mm-hmm. And I think that's going to be huge moving forward. And I think it's about when you talked about a lot of the BS that's going on. I get what you're saying. It's you have to have consensus building. You have to be open and listening. I think as a county commissioner, I don't know everything that you need because that's not my expertise to know that. But it's my expertise to listen to what you need and to look over it and see if we could get that in the budget. That is the biggest thing that I think has probably gotten lost is that respect and listening to each other and understanding how important something that you need is.
Yeah. Listening is I like hearing that. That's a value.
Yeah. Do you feel like that's a common problem amongst the commission that is present now? And just is that, to me, that seems to be an issue with the whole term limit thing that you had spoke about with the new faces, new fresh faces. It seems like they almost get paralysis to hearing the same thing over and over and over again. They're just like, oh, there's the fireman bitching again. Yeah. Or, you know what I mean? Or here comes the fire chief. What's he need today? Sort of that kind of thing.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because I always say you might think that until your house is on fire and nobody shows up. Yeah. And I say same thing with our police force. I know that our police, and I'm sure it's probably the same way in the county, was the biggest portion of our budget. And public health and safety is number one. We have to fund that. We have to protect our citizens. I know when I call 911, I want you guys to show up. Yeah. And to me, I've always had a great relationship with our fire chief down in Carolina Beach, and I think he'd probably tell you the same thing. I said, come to me, tell me what you need. You're the expert on this. I'm not. And let's talk about it, and let's talk about if we can put that in the budget. And, 1 to 10, how important is it? Is it a 5 important, or is it a 9 important? And those are, we have a lot of, and so does New Hanover County, have a lot of high rises and properties that, especially with the growth that we're experiencing, sure. What equipment and what do you need to be able to successfully fight that fire? So, and I know that I don't know everything. And it's interesting that I hear a lot of people, are very closed-minded, but I think if we're open-minded to understand what we don't know, then we go find people who do know. And that would be you guys.
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know.
You sound like hearing you talk that way reminds me of most extremely successful business owners. Mm-hmm. They don't try to pretend, or they don't try to have the answer to everything that they don't know. They don't know what they don't know, so they find the people who know. That's, if you look at all your mega businesses and great successful companies and whatnot, that seems to be a very common thing. They put themselves around people who know the things that they don't know, and then they outsource what they don't.
Yeah, I call it building a team. And, I've been a small business owner for 27 years, and so I understand. I was on the phone in the parking lot just trying to talk to a couple of people about something I had no idea about, which was some technology things. And I think if you can admit what you are not good at and what you don't know, and you go seek those people out, it's just so important. And that's what you build a team for, be able to reach out to someone and say, hey, what is this? Tell me what's going on with this. What do I need to know? Mm-hmm.
So you're a successful businesswoman, no doubt, right?
Okay. I like to think so.
Yeah, you'd like to think so. Why in the world would you want to dabble into politics? You could end your career as mayor in Carolina Beach and be good, right? Hang that one hang that feather in your hat, did my part, served my community. Why would you want to get into the mess that is politics nowadays?
It's interesting you ask that question. I get asked that all the time.
Sure.
And I say this, and I mean this, if all the good people quit, who are we left with? We're left with what we get accused of now. Not all politicians or people involved in politics are bad. They're really not. Most of them are actually really good and trying to do the right thing. Are there some bad ones? Yeah. But if all the good ones quit, that's what you're going to be left with. And I tell people all the time, I read social media, and they do it to me too, which, it's crazy. If you've got somebody who's really working hard for you and really listening and trying to do a good job, why are you beating them up? Mm-hmm. Don't make them say, I'm not going to do this anymore. So, and I think that's what has happened. A lot of our public is cruel and mean to a lot of people. And honestly, you guys and I, we didn't talk about affiliation. I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat or unaffiliated. It doesn't matter. We're all people, and we're all living here together. And so we have to be respectful of that. And I think that's just what's so important. And I'm doing it. And I've said that, I haven't lost an election yet. And if I lose this one, I'll probably just go away. Then I may, might be running for something else in 10 years. Who knows? Yeah. But I'm here, and, it's just a path that I was put on. And I told this story the other day. It came back to me from, and you'll get this from, I'm sure you've heard this story about Jonah and the whale. I said, if it's the path God's put you on, I don't want to be in the belly of a whale somewhere. So I'm going to travel this road as long as I'm on it. And the day that it's time for me to get off of it, I will. That's the best answer I can give you.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. Yeah,
that's good. That's good.
In politics, especially in the last couple of years, it feels like you're representing us, right? Or not necessarily the fire department, but the people that live in this area. So there's the majority. So we all vote, and then the majority gets whoever representing. Lately, it feels like it's more the loud voice. So it might be a small group of people, but they're yelling the loudest. So they end up getting their ways. And that's, before you got here, we were talking about like how far left and right everybody's, it's like the middle is empty and everybody's moved to the extremes. How do we get around that? How do we get it to where it's just looking after the community and, like you said, safety and service, and not just the loud voices getting heard?
So I got a great answer for that, because I have experienced this during the primary and this election more than I ever have. But I do think politics is different now than it ever has been. You have the extreme right and you have the extreme left. But there is a whole lot of people in the middle. Mm-hmm. They're just quiet. They're the quiet. Majority. They're the silent majority, and I hope they're going to be out there voting, because I believe that's the silent majority. We have 50,000 Democrats, 52,000 Republicans, and 72,000 unaffiliated voters in New Hanover County. So they will be the ones that make that decision. Mm-hmm. And important. I think that's why you've seen people move to that middle, is because they don't like the ugliness of the extremes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I think people are, I don't want to say bored, but I think they're fed up. I think they're just fed up with the loud voices on the left and the loud voices on the right, and they're just like, psh. I mean, we're lazy. Humans are lazy by nature, right? And they're not going to go out and study Miss LeAnne and her background and where's she coming from and this and that. They're going to go off of who's got the loudest Facebook page in New Hanover County and what they're saying about LeAnne. Or, whoever you're running against, the same things. They're going to say the same things, and it's going to be from both sides. And they're just going to be lazy and sit right here in the middle and say, oh, well, Don, he's my neighbor. Yeah, he must know. He's in it. He's into politics hard. So whatever he says, I'm just going to go with them. And it's wild.
And I agree with that. And if you've ever looked at social media, you'll see a title of something, and they never read the article based on their comments.
Right.
And I'm like, well, you couldn't have read the information, because what you commented had nothing to do with the actual article, just the title that you read. So, and you're exactly right. And I was just kind of shocked to find that people would show up during the primary to vote, and they didn't know who they were voting for in the lower level elections, like their Board of Education and their county commissioners, and maybe even their state races. They were looking for that big Senate race, or and then they showed up and said, "Who should I vote for?" I was shocked. You know, if you're going to go vote, find out who's on the ballot and who you want to vote for. I think it's important.
Yeah, we we harp about that on this show. We try not to dabble too much into politics. We do it for the importance of it, obviously, because it affects every part of our career, every part of our job in our fire departments that we work for. So, but we've had several folks on the show that run for higher levels of, you know, for North Carolina Congress and representatives, and then we do a lot of work with the PFF-PNC and our local IFF here. We do a lot of I'm gonna use, this is a coined phrase, media counseling, you know, for these folks. And I kind of forgot where I was going right there. I had a very good point.
It happens. It happens.
I was beating around the bush and forgot about it.
You're too young for that.
No.
Girl, I'm not as young as you think I am. It'll come back to me.
Yeah. That I was going to make a parallel. You know, we were talking about earlier, people in that 10, 15-year range that are leaving the department. I think the same thing's happening to them that happens in the voter world. So you feel lost. You feel like my individual self, like in the fire department, if you're trying and you want to be a good fireman, you want to be useful and have purpose, and you just feel like you're not doing anything, then you feel lost, and it's like, I need purpose. So the times that I get frustrated with the job, that's what I'm seeking is purpose. So I think our 10 to 15 year group is leaving for either to start their own business, to feel like they can make some decisions and be in charge of their own, you know, environment. And in the voter world, it's so confusing. Like you see these clickbait ads on social media, and you hear different conversations, and you're like, bro, I don't know who's telling lies. I don't know who's telling the truth. So you feel lost in those two. Hearing you talk about that, the big silent majority in the middle, we've talked about that, and it's so true. And social media has made it difficult to identify what's right. So that's where I appreciate these kind of conversations.
I think social media has changed our whole world as we knew it just maybe 10 years ago. Yeah. And on top of that, I think COVID it changed a lot of the ways we think and the things that we do. And even sometimes myself, I'm just kind of hesitant to even say what I think about something, because I know that somebody beside me is staunch, you know, to one side. So I think that that's why you have a lot of that silent. They don't want to argue, and I'm not into the negative ads. I'm not into all the negativism. I don't like that. If I can't run on myself and be the best candidate based on what I have, you know, I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah, I agree. That it came back to me.
Okay.
The where I was going as I was moseying around, the fact that we have local politicians come on is we want to promote the fact that the things that happen within our departments is on a local level. So we get people all the time to ask, you know, well, what can little old me do, or what can we do to make our job better? You can pay attention to who's on your board of elections. You can pay attention to who your commissioners are, who your mayors are. You can start there. You know, turn off the national news, and if you want to make a difference, you got to start in the area you work. You got to start locally, and that's where I was kind of going when I lost my place.
I always say everything is local, right down to local business. You know, we have to support everything that's local, because if you're thinking here, you miss the whole roots of where you live, and local elections affect you more than the higher level elections, and so it'll affect your day-to-day life more. So, like with the county, it'll affect your pay, and it'll affect tax rates and those type of things that'll affect you, your pocketbook hard.
Yeah, you mentioned the Board of Elections. You said that, and Board of Education. That Board of Education list is so important. You know how folks will move to a neighborhood for the school districts. You know, if we get the wrong people in the Board of Education, and they're making decisions that are pushing the kids out of the schools, and then members of the community are leaving and going to other places, like it upsets the town. You got to have a good education system and the right decision makers. in those positions?
Well, it's interesting. Those children that we are educating now, and at my age at 54, you guys are much younger, but I'm thinking, well, wait a minute. When I get to be about 70, those kids are going to be the ones calling the shots. So I want to make sure that we educated them well.
Yeah.
Because I'm a little let's see, concerned about the school board. I was looking for the right political word. I'm a little concerned.
I want the raw word.
I was looking for the word. It's a little concerning and embarrassing when they can't have a meeting without arguing. And that's a problem for me, and I don't think that sets a very good example for the children. If you can't behave yourselves, how do you expect those children to behave? Because that's the example you should be setting. And as a county commissioner, we don't make the decisions for the school board, but we do fund them. And I do think that we need to have great relationships. And if I do win this election, and I hope to be successful, I want good school board candidates to win that I can work with. And the yelling and the fighting and that's got to go. Yeah. So I'm not going to deal with that. But we need to just have great relationships and pick up the phone and say, hey, let's go talk about what's going on with you guys over there, and what are the problems, and what do you need from us as county commissioners. And that's kind of the same relationship I had as mayor of Carolina Beach. If I needed something, I would call my county commissioners, and I hope to be in that position where I understand what they need because I've been on the other side of that coin. So, and you're right, the school board is just so essential that we educate our children properly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, couldn't agree more.
Properly. What's your model education system when it comes to educating them properly?
I think we need to teach our children how to read, write, number one. And my youngest son is 26, and then I guess they don't teach cursive writing anymore in schools.
I don't think
so.
Yeah, he does not sign his name in cursive, and I think he may have been maybe the last group of that. But I think properly means we need to teach them the basics, number one. And I don't want to leave out a lot of history because I think history is important because you learn from history. And if you're not careful, history repeats itself. So if you don't know the mistakes that you made in the past, then you can never use that to not make that mistake again. I don't think we should teach our children what to think. I think we should teach them how to think.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, hashtag that in the bottom of the show notes for sure.
Yeah, that's how how profound for you to think that an educational system would allow our students and our kids. I have an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old, so allow our kids to kind of nature the way of thinking for themselves. Yeah, that's.
Give them the tools and let them be creative thinkers and ask questions and go find those answers they're looking for.
Yeah. If they can read and write, they can communicate.
That's right.
If they know their history, they can hopefully prevent making those same mistakes again. And then a good science program, math program, where they can solve problems.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I was a biology major. So I was, and being from the country in Pender County, I was very much into the outdoors and the environment. So that was a big thing for me. So at heart, I'm a scientist, and I believe that we need to teach the basic science to our children.
Yeah, well, it's the fundamentals of us as human beings. We all started outside. We all started interacting with animals and nature. So it's, we have evolved into what we are today. So that definitely falls in the basics category, for sure. What are some of the things what are some of your goals? I'm not going to hit you with the first 100-day thing like they do the president. But what are some goals that you hope to achieve pretty rapidly once you're elected?
That's an interesting question because several forums we went to, they said, what are you going to do your first day in office? And I thought, anybody who tells you they're going to do anything other than listen, it's not the right answer. As well as I do is when you go into a new position, you need to listen and find out what's going on around you before you start talking. So I do know that. I'd like to get in there and kind of feel the ropes and just listen to my fellow commissioners and our county manager and our staff, just kind of feel the waters a little bit. And I can tell you, people who come in with no experience, it takes a long time. Like you were just talking about some acronyms. I always say it takes a year to learn the acronyms of everything that we're dealing with, as in a government. But I thank goodness I know most of them. So, but I want to listen and see what's going on. I already have some thoughts in my mind, but the number one thing I really want to do is restore, which I think has been broken, the faith and the trust that our citizens have in our county commissioners. And not to throw any names or, and I wouldn't do that. And I wish everybody the best in the world, but some people do not need to be in certain positions. So, and I do think our citizens, have lost a lot of trust in our government, and they need to have trust and transparency, because once they elect someone, they kind of go on about their lives, and that's what it should be. That's why you elect a person to represent you, because they should be doing what you think is the right thing when you're not looking at them. So that's what's important to me, is to restore that trust and to build those relationships back with our municipalities, our 3 beach towns, our city of Wilmington, and our county, our school board, our state and federal partners. Build that relationship back and restore the faith in our citizens, and be transparent and have them speaking at our meetings, and let us hear from them.
That's a good point. I want to pose a question. So in the fire service, the beach towns, the city of Wilmington, so you got Curie Beach, Carolina Beach, the city of Wilmington. Am I missing anybody there? I think that's this. Wrightsville Beach. So there's 4 different fire departments essentially that encompass New Hanover County. We all act and feel that it's we're in 4 different states, like we're in 4 different worlds, and we don't necessarily all communicate as well as we should.
Yeah, it's 5 if you in New Hanover County.
Right. Yeah. So there's 5 total. Is it like that in the government system as well?
Absolutely, and that's why I brought that up. When I was at Carolina Beach, and it's funny, people would say, so why don't y'all like Wrightsville Beach? I said, we do. I mean, we get along great. I mean, I talked to Mayor Mills. I saw him today. He was at the polls, and I knew Mayor Blair and Mayor Blazinski and Mayor Saffo. We really did work well together, but it was like everybody was doing their own thing. And then the county was doing their own thing. And it's probably the same with the fire service, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
That you guys all need to have great communications amongst yourself. But I'll tell you what I do know about the fire service. When we had fires at Carolina Beach, every fire truck in New Hanover County was there. It was from every other town was there, a county was there, and when the rubber hits the road, they got your back. So I think that's huge. When we went through the pandemic, I think a lot of the beach towns definitely got together. We were on the phone every day, and Mayor Saffo here in Wilmington, we were all on the phone every day. What are y'all doing? We got to do this together, because we can't overload one portion of the county, with everybody wanting to go there, because you have different rules. We're trying to make all the rules the same. So I'm pretty sure it's the same amongst you all, and I think that's important that we have those communications, and I hope to be able to build that. And I think if you were to reach out to, Chief Griffin, he would say the same thing. Hey, we want to have a direct line to you guys, and I think, the other chiefs would say the same thing.
Yeah, it seems like a constant battle of trying to combat animosity. It's just between all of us. It's like, I don't know, it's just like an unspoken kind of thing, that's like, we're better than you. Well, no, we're better than you. And it's just, I don't know, it's weird. It's honestly not surprising to hear that it happens on levels of government above us. It's kind of seems like the same kind of culture.
Well, and different municipalities have different budgets, and that's a lot of what you're seeing. These little beach towns have very small budgets, and City of Wilmington and New Hanover County have bigger budgets. So I can see how there might be a little envy of, hey, they got this truck or they got this equipment, and we can't afford that. I get it.
Yeah, there's also that loudest voice thing.
No doubt.
So we have 120 ish on the line staff, and if 5 of them are really outspoken and out there, making whatever positive or negative impacts, then it looks like all of us are. So there's
that's a good point. Yeah, because people don't discern. They don't know which person is saying what, and they think, oh, it's all of you.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah. Imagine pick out 2 or 3 of our go-getter captains that are like on the run, and then 2 or 3 of the ones that are just more mild-mannered. If you let them be like the public image, God, it would look like 2 completely different departments.
You're right.
All of them doing great jobs. It's just personalities,
And that's human nature.
Absolutely.
No, we can't fix that either, but hopefully we can set good examples.
No doubt. I've got a list of things that I wanted to discuss with you, more or less probably just get your opinion on. I know there's not much that a single person, a single commissioner can do, but just some of our common problems and things that we're pushing for on the fire side of things, just to get your opinion. And if you think, that sounds kind of unobtainable, you're more than welcome to say that. Yeah. That's fine. This is all 100% opinion based. One of our big things that we've been pushing for lately is, we just became accredited. So the fire department just became accredited. I think we're I'm not going to say the smallest, but I think we've been organized. New Hanover County Fire Rescue is the fastest to ever be accredited in the nation, period, if not in the world. Some of your little military bases have done it over time, but we're really close right there. So it's a new thing for us. But one of our biggest things that we were pushing and one of our biggest data collection points was our ERF, our emergency response. What's the F stand for?
I don't remember now.
Okay, emergency response, whatever. It's how many. So if we have a fire here, it's how many personnel and how many pieces of equipment does it take to handle this situation, handle this fire. And then how long does it take them to get there? This, that. You're shaking your head like you know
I'm
this.
a little familiar with that.
So,
Alan always made sure we understood their response times.
Okay, so the ERF and part of the accreditation process is building the ERF and getting it to get it to be the best it possibly could. So one thing that we're presenting or one thing that we're pushing for is more people per truck. So right now our minimum staffing is 3, and that's on every piece of apparatus, our rescues, our engines, our ladders, all the same, 3. So we're trying to get to 4. So essentially what we're doing is we're upping the ERF by personnel on the actual scene faster because we have more people to bring per apparatus. So that's one thing we're pushing. Another thing we're pushing, if you want to comment on any of those, you can stop me and comment on them, is our separation allowance. That kind of filling the gap between retirement age and when your actual Social Security or Medicaid, is that what it is?
Yeah, there's an age you have to be to collect your retirement, but you have your 30 years in before that gets there. So
I'm a good example of that. Right. Yeah. I started in the fire service. I was here when I was 21. So I'll be reaching my 30 years well before I'm able to collect. So that period between, that's something that we want. All the police departments have it in the state of North Carolina. It's a state-funded thing. We want it to be locally funded. Why not? Let's be the pilot program for the rest of the fire services in our state. It's a good idea.
I spoke to a committee in the House of Representatives about that, and we were trying to get it's very similar. We were trying to get 25-year retirement instead of 30, and we were talking about we just had a generic employee that had been with the department 25 years, and their pay, how it's not base pay anymore, they've gotten raises, and if that person is allowed to retire and move out, and then a young lower paid person comes in, then it offsets that cost of letting that person retire. So it's not as costly as it seems, and there were some studies that suggested it actually saves money because of the difference in pay.
And that was going to be my comment, because if you move through the question too, I'll forget the first one.
Like
but
I said, you can stop me.
Yeah, so
I'll do that.
I know a little bit about the separation just because I understand that you need turnover of younger firefighters coming in, not to dismiss the older ones, but they're staying on just to hit that retirement age, but may not be able to do as much as a younger person. I see what you're saying. So what is that gap? So that would be a really great thing to bring the county manager in on and really look at it with the finance director is what does it cost to keep this person versus go ahead and come up with a separation allowance and hire a younger person that starts at the beginning. Now, the second question I would have is, so I don't know how the police department always has ways that they do a lot of things. I remember they had different organizations. Not only the fire department does too, nonprofits. They have Blue Liners, and you guys have
PFFPNC.
Yeah.
Local,
okay. Yeah.
Local,
you're right.
Yeah.
But I don't know how they've been able to fund that through the state. But that would certainly be something that I would try to go to first. Would be to get state funding for it from at the state level before the county level. But then I'd have to go to the county manager and say, "Can you fund this? And does it make sense? And what is that real gap?"
Yeah, I wish I had.
I don't think we know that.
Yeah, I wish I had Captain Bobzine for this answer. There was a half a cent, I think it was a sales tax that was set aside years ago, and half of that lump of money was to go to the fire department, half was to go to law enforcement for that benefit, and then something happened, and the fire side got squirreled away and spent somewhere else, and we were trying to get them to pull it back and put it where it was intended to be put, and we ran into some walls with that.
And you mean like a sales tax, $0.25, like they're talking about now on the ballot, like a $0.25 sales tax?
Well, this has been years ago.
Yeah, I remember when that was on it years ago.
Yeah, it was brought up, and the PD got it, but something happened to the fire side of things, and stuff happens in state. But why can't New Hanover County do it for its employees? There's only 120 of us as of right now. I mean, and it just seems, I don't know, it seems a little unbelievable that there's only maybe one or two. I don't even know if it'd be one or two a year that this actual benefit would take effect, because there's not one or two of us retiring a year. That's not realistic. It just doesn't happen.
To make the question real easy for you, I'm both a tax-paying member of the community and an employee. So if we could put it out, like get it on the table and look at the dollars and cents of what does this cost, and then let that data be the decision maker and see what the cost and the benefit is. If I knew that was happening in a meeting, I would feel good, both as a member of the department and as a taxpayer, to know that it wasn't just they're trying to get something. Nope. You know what I mean? That's what it feels like sometimes. Right. Yeah. If I knew it was, all right, let's get all the information in. Let's get the professionals in the room and see, how does this work? Can this even work, or would it just be too much of a tax burden? We don't want to hurt the county. Right. So,
and that's exactly the way I would look at it. I would have to see it all laid out, and I would encourage you guys to start that process, start that ball rolling. What is that real number? So I don't think any of us know sitting here. I don't know. You might know more than I do, but I have heard this before. What is that real number? And make a case for what makes sense, why that makes sense to do that. So that's what I would have to do, is see what that real number is.
Yeah, there are a bunch of morally correct things that, sure, if money grew on trees, we could pay for everything, right? Like, nobody would argue against that. It's got to make sense. I think this could make sense. Like you said, it just needs to be put on the table, see the data. Like, how many a year would it be, and what's the cost analysis? So just knowing that it could have a fair shot, that's all we're asking for, really.
Sure. Yep.
No, I would be happy for you guys to do that, and we would get with whoever in the county. And, I guess just kind of thinking through it in my mind here, I guess you got to think about, are you hiring more people because this group over here to our right doesn't have some of the capabilities they need because they may have some issues or whatever, and they can't operate, let's say, X equipment, and you have to bring in more people. So are you having more staff because of that? I don't know. Or is there more medical issues or different things involved? I'm looking at thinking about all that, and I know you bring up the cancer issue earlier. I mean, I know there's been a lot of that in the fire service as well. So those are a lot of things to think about. I think it will certainly be worth dissecting and coming to that real number. But you can't talk about it unless you know what that is.
That's sure, right. You're not wrong. Yeah, that's accurate.
When the fire department asks the government for more personnel, it's not a request like a kid asking for candy for Christmas. Like, it's not just we want this. It's always based on how can we satisfy the response needs. And so it's like the most honorable request that's ever sent anywhere, but it always gets reviewed as if, oh my God, they're asking for something. You know what I mean? Right. Like it kind of hurts your feelings a little bit when you're motivated.
No, I understand. Well, you feel defeated.
Yeah.
And that goes right back to let me move on somewhere else and some other thing and do a second job and go ahead and just leave. No, I get it. And that's, I was listening to you when you were talking about how many people. Well, you got to think about it. One person's got to drive. Right. I mean, I can do the mental math. I mean, I don't know what everything you do, but I know somebody has to drive, or the truck or the equipment or whatever you're taking, and somebody's I guess, doing communications, and you got somebody unloading. So I get what you're saying. What you're saying. There's somebody's got to get in that house and find out what the problem is.
Yeah, our biggest thing right now is we have this thing. We have what's called 2 in, 2 out. So for every 2 people that go inside of a house that's on fire or whatever, a building that's on fire, an IDLH atmosphere, there's supposed to be 2 people outside in case of emergency or something like that happens. You can chip in here whenever you see fit in case.
It's an OSHA thing. Like it's not
Yeah,
a
that makes
local
sense.
rule. Yeah, it's big. Yeah.
So right now, a single truck that gets to your house, unless it's deemed like Miss LeAnne is inside and we know 100% definitively that she's inside, we're not allowed to enter to help protect your property or, suppress the fire from growing to be something else until another company gets there, another truck with 3 more people gets there, so we can satisfy this 2 in, 2 out. So simply adding 1 more person gives you 4 people on scene.
Yeah, so you can have your 2 in and your 2 out.
You can have 2 in, 2 out with 1 single piece of apparatus there. So if it is just, oh man, you left your chicken fingers on the kitchen for too long, and now your kitchen's on fire. Well, now it doesn't have to get to your kitchen, your living room, possibly your bedrooms, and burn
attic.
up all your stuff. Yeah, and your attic, and possibly completely ruin everything in your house. It's only beneficial for everybody involved. It's beneficial for us on our side of things. It's beneficial for our clients or the citizens that we serve. So it's, I don't know, but it's money. So
Well, that makes sense to me. And just, and you may know this, you may not. Just curious, how many unfilled positions do you have? Do you know that?
We're pretty close to our full staff. We're
Just 120?
I might not be perfect on that number, but it's in that range. And attrition happens and people leave. But we run processes pretty regular. Man, that leads right into the academy thing.
yeah, that was another one on the list. Us running processes, so our hiring process, that seems to happen 4 or 5 times a year, it seems
at
like.
least, yeah.
So we're hiring 1, 2, 3, at the high side, I would say maybe 4 people at a time. And they're going through this very short, what we call onboarding process. So we've kind of gone away from fire academies. You see on social media these bigger municipalities, these bigger departments, stuff like that. That's what they're blasting is their academies because it's drawing. It's like, the 18, 19-year-old kid watching that, he's like, shit,
Yeah. I want in.
Yeah, I want to do that. So, but we've since kind of gone away from that, and we're hiring 2, 3, whatever. If we have 1 position available, we might hire out for 1 person rather than have a reserve of folks that we can call on once they've gone through the academy. But that seems to be that's collective amongst every member of our department for the most part, all the people on the line anyway, the people who ride the trucks, is that we want academies back. I went through an academy. Steve went through an academy, but there's been a it's quit pretty abruptly, and that's a funding issue. They said we can't fund academies. So I'd be glad to get into the pros of the academies or the cons. I mean, there's sides to both. Money is your con. It's the only con.
It's always money.
Yeah, that's the con.
I will point out that on the surface, it looks like an academy costs this much money, like this pile over here, and to hire 1 and 2 costs a little bit. But if you're having to run those processes multiple times, then suddenly the piles start to even out.
So if you would, gentlemen, explain to me, where is the academy and who does the academy? Did we have one here? Is that what you're saying?
So my academy, we ran in-house. So New Hanover County Fire Department staff, we had lieutenants that were in charge of our daily training, and we did it at the college, which we are
1/3.
1/3.
Do you mean like Cape Fear Community College, the training they have there?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, the tower and the whole deal.
Gotcha.
So we're part owners of that facility.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So we've already paid for that. And our guys, it was always on shift captains or lieutenants. So it's like on paper, it looks like, well, you had to have a captain there, you had to have a driver there, but they were already on duty and then got moved over. So, and most of the time it was, you were like ready to respond. So it's like on paper.
While you were doing the academy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So
That's 2 for 1, right?
yeah, it looks like it costs a lot of money, but when you actually look at that person, you didn't just pay them to come here; they were already
on duty.
Yeah.
And if they had a call, they would leave.
And they would leave. Yep. Yeah, it's a academy. You call them kids, but they're not. They can survive and not die if you leave. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. It's not 6-year-olds.
I think that's something that needs to be looked at in the future, though. I think there should be a dedicated, some dedicated personnel to the academy, because it is so very important. All the things that we talked about before with the additional staffing, retention for us, the 15 and 20-year guys leaving, the 2 and 3 year folks leaving, that all stems from the culture that you have cultivated within an academy. That's where we got it from. That's why I've been here for going on 16 years, and he's, what are you now?
12.
12.
Yep.
And we still share this passion. It's something that was instilled in us, and this culture that was cultivated in us due to our academy. And the folks that don't have that, they leave. They
you
don't.
mean
they
a
don't
little bit like going through boot camp and
Yes,
military training,
absolutely.
that kind of thing. So you
Absolutely.
build this camaraderie and this love of the fire service. That makes sense.
Yeah, but funding has always been our issue. We can't afford to run academies anymore. We can't afford to do this. We can't afford to do that. So it's
So I would say again, how much does that cost?
Right.
There's a number somewhere on what that costs. But I mean, I see what you're saying. If that person is on duty and they have the fire truck with them and they're ready to roll and they're also teaching the academy, I guess the question is, if they have to leave, you're saying what happens to those students?
Yeah, well, depending on what the particular training was for that particular day or whatever it is, you just get an early lunch. Yeah, it could be that simple.
Yeah. Or one staff member is on overtime for that day. In that situation, they're assisting with teaching, but also if the engine has to run a call, then they're still able to keep the class moving.
Which 99.9% of the time, there's always, the way the system is now, there's somebody being paid overtime to hang out with these 2 or 3 folks that are there already.
So how long has it been since there was an academy?
2013, I think.
Okay.
2013.
Yeah.
Okay.
So going on a decade. And it would be interesting to go back and look at the numbers and see the amount of folks that have left 2013 prior to now versus 2013 to our inception.
Also, that's a good time frame. You know how if you're looking for data, if you're only looking in a small window, then it's like, I don't know if that data tells me anything. But if it's an 8-year window, then that data is pretty bankable. So that's a good question. Yeah, maybe
That's interesting.
look at that cost for those 3 or 4 or 5 academies that got run, and then the cost without it. That's good.
Now, you'd have to have those statistics, I think, to back your case. But I certainly understand the camaraderie that you're talking about. You're building that love of the fire service. And we talked about that, even with the nurses, the issue that we were having in New Hanover County with our nurses. How do we get in the high schools and encourage people to be nurses and police officers and firefighters, and how do we catch them there? And once they get into the colleges and universities, how do we get them to stay here in Wilmington? They have to have some connection with us, or they're just going to go somewhere else.
Yeah, it sounds a lot like the exact same thing.
Yeah.
So, we're reaching out to our kids in our high schools, and I think we could do better at that, but we're trying to reach out to our kids in our high schools and so on. But then it's like, fire service is a unique place. It's it's a eat or be eaten world. You know what I mean? It's different. So, you're hanging out with 2 or 3 other people who are scared to death, just like you, coming into a house where there's 6 or 7 of us that have been on this job for a long time, and you got to earn your salt. And you're 18-year-old kid. You're scared to death to be around that. Which I don't blame them. I mean, but that's the culture. Same thing with our nurses.
Now, what is it that the term is going over the top of my head? They used to have these young folks come into the fire department, and they were
Junior firemen.
Explorers.
Junior firemen, the
Junior firemen,
explorers and the junior firemen.
yeah.
I remember we had quite a few junior firemen, and I think that was awesome. Of course, they didn't go to fires. They were trained, at the firehouse, and they hung out with the firemen, and I think that's a great program. I don't know if you still have that or not.
There's a small program that I think it's like maybe 3 or 4 that are participating. I got to kick back for a second. one non-monetary thing about the academies is solves a couple of problems. But I came on with no fire experience, but I went through the academy and they trained me everything. When we run these processes now without an academy to teach, you have to come in with certifications. So our applicant pool is sometimes 2, sometimes 3 and 4. Like, you're running a process. So you're putting all these personnel in charge of interviewing and doing all the stuff, but you're only getting 3 applicants or 2, or, you know, when I applied, there was 400 and some that made it through to the application. You know, that means there was probably 600 or 700 that the application, they didn't check a box, or HR kicked them for whatever reason. So, but there was 400 and some that, were you there that day? We all showed up to the tower for the agility part.
Yes.
It looked like some big concert. Like,
I didn't think we were ever going to get done. Yeah. It was wild.
So hiring, we call it off the street. You run an academy. Now your applicant pool is massive. So you're solving these problems of, what's the fancy word they come up with now to make sure you're equally offering jobs to everybody in the community. So it's not just the
diversity.
Yeah. So if you don't have to have certifications, then you didn't have to be a kid from a small town that had a volunteer fire department, and that's how you got you can open it up. And anybody that lives in the area that wants to try, there's no elimination. It's not the 60s and back. Like, come on, whoever, and try out for the job, and then go through an academy and learn. Yeah. So it's not, everything doesn't boil down to money. There are ways to solve other problems that are valuable to, you know, the county manager and to everybody.
That's part of our issue. We can't go to UNCW and say to whatever XYZ soccer player and say, hey, you know, come when you get done with your college soccer career, college football, table tennis, whatever. You're a collegiate athlete. I mean, come work for us, but first, I need you to go through a 9-month process at Cape Fear Community College and not get paid for it. Then fill out an application and then come work for us.
It's not happening.
Would you do that?
So no, and that's a good question. I was going to ask how long is the community college program? So it's 9 months.
That's an arbitrary number. It might be not, that seems to be
Could
right.
Be more or less.
6 to 9 months. Yeah, sure.
I think it's the equal to like a semester in college.
Sure.
Gotcha. Yep. And how long was the academy?
They have varied from 3 months to mine was 7 months. But I got every certification that was available other than trench and confined space. That might have been a bit much. Right. Yeah. So we're looking for that 3-month academy.
So it's focused on that.
That's right. If we can get them through basic firefighter, and then if we can get them through EMT. So you're talking, it shouldn't be that long. But
you can get your specialty classes on other time. Like, we don't have to put you through an academy to get the high angle ropes and all the other stuff.
Sure.
So.
Interesting. Yeah, it's wild. It's just like Steve said. We're taking this broad area of folks that we can reach out to come work for us and satisfy this diversity thing that was being pushed on us. And it's more or less bottlenecking it down to your rural people, rednecks, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Your rural rednecks who have grown up with their mamas and daddies being in the fire service. And that's what they know. So they're like, being a fireman in New Hanover sounds pretty cool. So I don't know. It's like we're handcuffing our own selves and then whining about it at the same time.
Right. So, you know, a couple thoughts went through my head. And as far as DEI, let me just say, I believe everybody should have equal opportunity, you know, to be successful. And I always say, I don't care if you're purple with polka dots when you come to work for me. If you do the job, come on.
Yeah.
You know, I could care less. I don't care what sex you are, what race, what color. Just come along, you know.
Absolutely.
But I kind of get a lot of the I'm trying to think of the right word, not restrictions, but a lot of limitations that might put on the fire service because you have a job that needs to be filled, that it might be a certain type of strenuous type of job. I'm just throwing this out there, and then you have to fill it with someone who may not be able to do that. I'm kind of tracking what you're putting down. But with that said, I wonder, I don't know, and I would have to look into this, if there are any grants or any studies out there for things like Fire Academy. I don't know if there's something like that available for the fire service.
I know the Safer grant paid for me. So Maybe.
And we had that at Carolina Beach too. I think it funded three new firefighters for like 5 years, but then we had to be able to take on their salaries and their benefits after those 5 years, and we did that several times. I think it was the same thing, the Safer grant. But I don't know what other grants out there are available. I wonder if there would be one to fund an academy. That'd be pretty interesting.
Yeah. I think what we're asking you for is to see, like, are these problems and these things, can they even make it to the table to be considered and discussed? That's what we're desperately looking for, is just to be heard. And can this stuff even get in the conversation instead of they're asking for more stuff?
It's funny you say that, because I said just today, everybody just wants to be heard. And if you come back and say we just can't do that, but you got heard. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's our jobs as representatives, to hear I'm not just, someone who's controlling some of the purse strings that go to the fire department. Also, you're representative. And if you say to me, we're shorthanded and we need people, I'm supposed to listen to that, and how do we get more people? And I think that, as strong a case as you could already make for yourself before it gets to that level is huge.
Right.
I think that's so important. And typically that's what I'm used to seeing. They already had it laid out before it ever got to me. And my job was to say, okay, manager, do we have the money? And is this something you support? So your department head says, yes, we need this. And then they know enough. And let's see. Gosh, I know Alan's going to be listening to this, but I got to say, Alan didn't bring any bull. He knew if he didn't have the numbers to back it, it wasn't going to fly. So, don't cry wolf. You bring it to the table, the way you want to present it, and that's my biggest suggestion for any department that's trying to develop something, is you make your case for it. And I think that it should always be listened to.
Yeah. Our chief, he catches some slack from a few individuals, but he knows not to bring a request that's not something he can fully describe and explain. He does a really good job on that. And some people get frustrated because they're like, just go and ask. And he knows, like, I can't.
That's not the way politics works.
That's right. Yeah.
You have it ready before you get there.
Yeah. He's intelligent. And if you know. But, sometimes people, they give him a hard time over it. But we know that he calculates, and he's got to make sure that that's a ironclad request.
Sounds like you got a good one then.
Yeah, but sometimes he makes that request, and then it's just bonk.
That's right. Yeah, it's like a brick wall.
Yeah, that brick wall right there.
Well, I won't know till I get there.
I know. Yeah.
But that's interesting. I mean, I think that if it is absolutely is related to the direct relationship to public safety, you got to hear it. You got to hear it. It's not like you say, I want 6 new chairs for the, for the pool room or whatever. That's a want. There's wants and there's needs. So
my hope in this conversation is that the people listening, like in our industry, it's important to go vote, and also it's important to know why. And if we have somebody that we know, we're not asking for, hey, we'll vote for you if you do this. We just want conversations to be able to happen and a fair shot. And our motives, we're asking for stuff to serve the community. I'm not padding my wallet here. You know what I mean?
Right.
So go vote. And if we have somebody that we can vote for that is understands the area and understands how this stuff works, and you'll listen and make a decision based on the data in front of you, not feelings, then.
Well, so it's interesting you would say that. I always like to say, and just because I'm a girl, don't think I'm emotional. People vote with their emotions way too much. I'm not like that. I mean, I want to see your numbers. I want to see your backup. I want to see your factual data. I'm not going to vote. Well, there's a little emotion in it, but no, the numbers have got to work. And as well as I do, if I prove something over here, I have to better explain to the public why I did that. So that's the kind of representative I am. It's not going to be an emotional decision. It would be a factual decision. So bring the facts.
Yeah,
heard that. You got any hopes
for
our little town?
I do have some concerns with so much growth in New Hanover County. And I consider, honestly, the fire service and our police department part of that infrastructure. I mean, are we keeping up? with that? I mean, are you able to service the areas that you need to service with what you have and the people that you have? Because the more people that move here and the more development that we have, the more issues you're going to have.
We are scared of all these apartments.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. I'm
terrifying.
I'm from a very small town where we've had, as you probably know, several huge fires in Carolina Beach, and it was devastating. Several of them were loss of life, as you know, and so that is certainly a concern. Yeah, and I think making sure that it goes through the proper TRC and those things before any of those developments are built is important. I mean, the fire department and police department and all those other people have to check off. But if something comes before me and the fire service says we can't service it, it's not happening.
Yeah.
You have to be able to. That's just a huge liability. I know you guys are familiar with. We had a couple of condominiums purposely set on fire. Gosh, maybe 3 or 4 years ago.
About 4 years ago.
About 4 years ago. It was terrible. And, of course, one just spread to the other, and that was part of that issue. And the one we had that I'm very familiar with not this past April a year ago, my son was in that apartment. He was one of the jumpers. And he was Kyle was on the second floor. And that was engulfed in like 3 minutes. That is just, and it was a very windy day, and they really never have figured out what caused that fire. And they honestly, what I heard was it may have just been as simple as a cigarette butt caught under the siding of the apartment complex. But and my son was home that day, and he jumped from his balcony with nothing. But of course, he had his cell phone now. He jumped with his cell phone and the clothes on his back. We're gonna leave the cell phone behind, and we joke at it. We joke with him now and say, "Why don't you throw a few other things over before you jumped?"
Yeah.
But he said, and this was in the middle of the day, that he heard people screaming and went to the door and tried to open his door, and it was hot, and then it was just fully engulfed. And that gave me a greater respect for the fire service, and I'd always been pretty close with those guys and ladies anyway. But that day, I mean, I could have lost my child's life. And so I was happy to see those fire trucks that day. And, and so that's what the point I was getting to is to have the equipment that it takes, because those other buildings, there's 3 other buildings there that could have caught on fire, and they had some damage, a lot of people there. So I think that's going to be something moving forward we're going to have to really look at is, can you fight a fire in some of those apartments?
Yeah. How silly is it to think of a community signing off on building all these gigantic buildings, but then the fire department comes and says, "Hey, we need another ladder truck." Why do you need another ladder truck?
Exactly.
Bro, you just built all these buildings. Like, we got to work together. Yeah. So.
And that's what I hear from the community as well. And a lot of them are just thinking about traffic, but they're not thinking about the fire side of it.
Yeah, they only think about what affects them directly right now. That's human nature. Makes sense.
Absolutely.
Well, Miss LeAnne, we don't want to hold you up too terribly late, but I'm glad that our local is supporting you. I'm a supporter of you for sure. I'm sure Steve is too after this, and we hope the best for you for sure, 100%.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it, and I appreciate having your support. And I want to hear all the issues that you have. Bring them to me, and we'll get them in front of our commissioners, and we'll see what we can do. And like you said, one person can't change it, but 3 can.
No doubt.
So that's the way that works. And I think that anytime it's directly related to public health and safety, you're going to find that your commissioners are all going to be on board no matter what affiliation that they are. So I hope that we can all work together and make New Hanover County the best it can be.
Well, that makes me happy to hear, for sure.
Yeah. So in the fire department, our vote's important, and I'm trying to get you some more votes here. Be purposeful get your family involved, get friends, network out, make sure that we get votes going in the right direction, because we're doing this for the right reason. Nobody's padding pockets. We're trying to get the best fire service that we can get for the community.
So early voting started today. This morning at 8 o'clock. It goes to 7:30. You have 5 early voting locations. That is the Northeast Library at Mayfair, the Senior Center over on Shipyard, Carolina Beach, Municipal Complex, and then the Cape Fear Community College and the North Campus of Cape Fear Community College are your 5 early voting locations today and tomorrow. Nothing over the weekend, and then it starts Monday, goes all through the next week and a half, next 2 weeks, and then November 8th is the actual election day. But I would encourage people to go out and vote early. I always say you don't know what's going to happen.
Sure.
On that day, you might be on a fire call, or it might be pouring down rain, or somebody's sick, or your kids are sick, and so get out and vote. I think that's huge, and I'll tell you, the turnout today was huge. I'm really looking forward to seeing the numbers tonight. I'm going to go online and see how many people voted, but people were everywhere, and they are concerned about their community, and I think that's important.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I hope you'll have me again. Maybe after the election, if I'm successful, you'll have me again.
That's a great idea.
Yep. Love to.
Yeah, nice.
Awesome.
Thank you, dear.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed that episode. Do us a favor, slide over to iTunes or Spotify or YouTube. Leave a 5-star review and leave a comment. If you want to support further, share it with somebody. Ask them to like, subscribe, and share it with their friends. If they can benefit from it, we need to spread it out. The more you like and comment, the more visible we are on all these platforms when people are just searching Firefighter Podcast. It'll come up Primary Complete a little bit quicker, and they won't have to dig quite so far to find us. We really appreciate that. Visit the website. It's a pretty good site. It's got all kinds of fun links and stuff. You can also find the shows there on the website as well, and that's www.primarycompletepodcast.com. Thank you all so much for your support. Again, we love you. Thank you for helping us make conversation great again.